Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, Mastering Grammar. I'm your host, Michael, and today we have a special guest, Thomas.
Hey, everyone. Glad to be here, Michael.
Today, Thomas and I will be diving deep into the world of grammar tips. We'll cover everything from verb tenses to subject-verb agreement and even sentence structure, so grab a pen and paper because you're in for a grammar-packed episode.
Absolutely, Michael. Verb tenses indicate the time at which an action takes place, past, present, or future. For example, I walked is in the past tense, I walk is in the present tense, and I will walk is in the future tense.
Let's start with one of the basics, verb tenses. Thomas, could you explain what verb tenses are? That's a great explanation, Thomas, and it's crucial to use the correct verb tense to convey the right meaning in a sentence. Let's move on to subject-verb agreement. Thomas, what does that mean?
Subject-verb agreement refers to the need for the subject and the verb in a sentence to agree in number. For example, if the subject is singular, the verb must also be singular, and if the subject is plural, the verb must be plural. So, she walks is correct, but she walk is not.
Exactly, Thomas. Maintaining subject-verb agreement ensures clarity and coherence in your writing. Now let's discuss sentence structure. Thomas, what are some key elements of sentence structure?
Well, Michael, sentences are made up of different components such as subjects, verbs, objects, and modifiers. It's essential to ensure that these elements are arranged correctly to form clear and meaningful sentences.
Right, Thomas. And using varied sentence structures can make your writing more engaging and dynamic. For example, mixing simple, compound, and complex sentences can add depth to your prose. Now let's dive into some examples to illustrate these grammar tips. Thomas, could you provide an example of correct verb tense usage?
Of course, Michael. Let's take the sentence, she to read a book every night. In this case, the correct verb tense is present simple, so it should be, she reads a book every night.
Excellent demonstration, Thomas. Now, let's look at subject-verb agreement. Can you give us an example of a sentence with correct subject-verb agreement?
Sure, Michael. How about this? The dogs to bark loudly. Since dogs is plural, the verb bark also needs to be plural. So it should be, the dogs bark loudly.
Perfect. Now, let's move on to sentence structure. Thomas, could you provide an example of a complex sentence?
Absolutely, Michael. Here's one. Although it was raining, she decided to go for a walk. This sentence has a main clause, she decided to go for a walk, and a subordinate clause, although it was raining, making it a complex sentence.
Well explained, Thomas. Using a variety of sentence structures can enhance the flow and rhythm of your writing. Let's explore some more advanced grammar concepts. Thomas, could you enlighten us about the subjunctive mood?
Of course, Michael. The subjunctive mood is used to express hypothetical situations, wishes, suggestions, or demands. For example, if I were rich, I would travel the world. Here, were is in the subjunctive mood, indicating an unreal or hypothetical condition.
Fascinating, Thomas. The subjunctive mood adds nuance and depth to our language, allowing us to convey complex ideas effectively. Moving on, let's discuss the difference between active and passive voice. Thomas, could you shed some light on this?
Certainly, Michael. In active voice, the subject performs the action expressed by the verb, while in passive voice, the subject receives the action. For example, she wrote the report is in active voice, whereas the report was written by her is in passive voice.
Right, Thomas. Active voice often makes sentences clearer and more direct, whereas passive voice is useful when the focus is on the recipient of the action rather than the doer. It's essential to use each voice appropriately to convey your intended meaning. Let's explore some practical tips for improving your grammar skills. Thomas, what advice would you give to our listeners who want to enhance their grammar proficiency?
One tip is to read extensively. Exposing yourself to a variety of written materials such as books, articles, and essays can help you internalize grammar rules and conventions naturally. Additionally, practicing writing regularly and seeking feedback from peers or mentors can accelerate your learning process.
Absolutely. Thomas, the more you immerse yourself in written language and actively engage with it, the more intuitive grammar becomes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're essential learning opportunities on your journey to mastery.
Another helpful strategy is to use grammar resources and tools, such as grammar books, online tutorials, and grammar checking software. These resources can provide guidance, explanations, and corrections to aid in your understanding and application of grammar rules.
That's great advice, Thomas. Embrace technology as a tool to support your learning journey, but also remember the value of traditional methods, such as grammar exercises and drills. Practice makes progress after all. Let's dive into some more examples to reinforce the grammar concepts we've discussed. Thomas, could you provide an example of the subjunctive mood?
Certainly, Michael. Consider this sentence. I wish I to be taller. Here, to be is in the subjunctive mood, indicating a wish or desire that may not be currently true.
Well illustrated, Thomas. The subjunctive mood allows us to express aspirations and hypothetical scenarios with precision and elegance.
Now, let's examine the difference between active and passive voice with another example. The chef, to prepare a delicious meal, is in active voice, whereas a delicious meal, to be prepared by the chef, is in passive voice.
Spot on, Thomas. Active voice emphasizes the doer of the action, while passive voice focuses on the receiver of the action. Both have their place in writing, depending on the context and emphasis you want to convey. As we near the end of today's episode, let's reflect on the importance of continuous learning and improvement. Thomas, what final thoughts would you like to share with our listeners?
I'd like to emphasize the value of patience and persistence in mastering grammar. It's a journey that requires dedication and effort, but the rewards are immense. Remember that everyone makes mistakes, and it's okay to seek help and guidance along the way.
Wise words, Thomas. Grammar mastery is a lifelong pursuit, and every step you take brings you closer to proficiency.
And don't forget to apply what you've learned in your writing. Practice is key to internalizing grammar rules and becoming a more confident and effective communicator.
Well, folks, that's all for today's episode of Mastering Grammar with Michael and Thomas. We hope you found our discussion enlightening and inspiring.